Hello and welcome in today's edition of Orange and Blue Today. Cecil, Lammey, Andrew Mason here to talk about the Denver Broncos playoff chances. Win and you're in. But what about winning that AFC West? What about winning the number one overall seed? And where does this 11-2 record stand historically? A lot to get to on today's program as we talk about this Broncos team preparing for the Green Bay Packers. Of course, everyone will be back out at work tomorrow. Broncos Park powered by Common Spirit. And looking forward to seeing what this team and their attitude is like before an absolute monster game against the Green Bay Packers. This is a big one. The Broncos can prove a lot with a win. They can prove a lot just with their effort. What will it be? What did they do? All of that and then some coming up today. Orange and Blue Today. Right here on our Denver Sports YouTube channel. Welcome in and thank you very much for watching. I am Cecil Lammey. We have, of course, Andrew Mason that we will hear from in just a little bit. But I wanted to start out the show to talk about the win and you're in scenario. 11 wins right now. And if I look at my handy dandy play sheet that Mason and I filled out when the schedule was released back in April, and I look at this game against Green Bay. Now I had them at 10-3 entering this contest. Had them losing on the road at Houston. I also had them losing to Philadelphia, but they won both of those games. I had them losing to the Chargers. I had them winning over the Colts. So the Chargers lost, the Colts lost. That's what's different. But I had this team at 10-3 going into this game against Green Bay. Mace had it as a win on his way to an 11-6 record. I had it as a loss on my way to a 13-4 record. So right there. And the thoughts about Green Bay, what is it going to be? You know, what kind of effort are they going to have against those Green Bay Packers in what could be a Super Bowl preview? What could be certainly an exciting game, perhaps the most exciting game of Week 15. Here to talk about all that and then some, but very excited about what we're going to see against the Green Bay Packers. And can the Broncos offense keep it up in terms of Bo Nix's efficiency as a passer, and then R.J. Harvey in that rushing attack? Can the Broncos do it again while also slowing down Josh Jacobs? We'll get into that as the week goes on. Also, you're going to have to look at Cortland Sutton, Pat Bryant, maybe more Marvin Mims. I think this is going to be a key for the Broncos going forward, much like it was last year, by adding more Marvin Mims into this offense, more explosive, more dangerous, more playmaking. It's exactly what Marvin Mims does for this squad. So I think, and I personally believe, that this team will start to introduce more of Marvin Mims as the rest of the regular season goes on. And that's that extra gear. We talk about it. We've talked about it on this show. I've brought it up on Dover and Cecil. Like, you're looking for teams in the playoffs that who can go to another gear? Who can go to another gear? And when you look at the Denver Broncos, when I look at the New England Patriots, they're playing at their max potential. Close enough. Very close to their max potential, both on offense and defense. I look at the Denver Broncos defensively, let's say about 80% of their max, but offensively like 50%, maybe 60%, not close to what their full max potential is on offense. So that extra gear is Marvin Mims. That's Turbo Van, the turbocharge. That extra gear is R.J. Harvey continuing to do what he did against the Raiders. That extra gear is perhaps Evan Ingram. We saw it against the Commanders, didn't see it against the Raiders. That extra gear is Bo Nix continuing to look more comfortable. I love this one from Wes. Defense needs to get turnovers. That's an extra gear. So when we look at these playoff scenarios, 11-2 Broncos, 11-2 Patriots, who can win? To me, it's the Denver Broncos because they have extra gears, plural, that the Patriots do not have. Do you want to peak too soon? Or do you want to start playing your best football right around the postseason time? That's my personal opinion. And we'll see what the Denver Broncos do coming up here in this game against the Green Bay Packers. Then Jacksonville, then Kansas City, then the Chargers, and wrap this thing up and get to the postseason. But I promised it, Andrew Mason traveling on his way back to the Mile High City. Mace had to check in and gives us a history lesson on what this 11-2 record means. Here's our guy, Mace.
Thanks, Cecil. All right, let's talk about where the Broncos stand. Of course, the path to the playoffs this Sunday, if the Broncos want to get it done and salt away their second consecutive playoff appearance, it's real simple. The Broncos, if they win against the Green Bay Packers, they're in the postseason. There's another scenario, of course, with a loss or a tie where they could clinch a playoff spot, and that involves both Houston and Indianapolis losing. And with a tie, there are some other potential paths to a playoff spot as well. But it's as simple as the Broncos win and they clinch that playoff spot. So that's clear. So the Broncos have that goal sitting in front of them. But there are bigger goals, of course, in mind for the Broncos. And that's where I think it's interesting to take a look at what their 11-2 record means historically. So, of course, 11-2, they've got the best record in the NFL right now. Another team is 11-2, the New England Patriots. But, of course, they're sitting there right now with a relatively low point differential for an 11-2 team. Their point differential for the season is 73, plus 73. That's an average of 5.6 points per game. And I wanted to find out, okay, is that unusual? Is that something that's unusually low? Well, as it turns out, it actually is unusually low. Believe it or not, the Broncos, among all the 11-2 teams in the Super Bowl era, and that is 76 teams, that's the fourth lowest point differential for an 11-2 team in the Super Bowl era. Fourth lowest of those 76 teams. Now, there are a couple of teams in that range that went on to win Super Bowls. The 1986 New York Giants, for example, they were sitting there with a plus 74 point differential and an 11-2 record. Of course, that's a Bill Parcells team, and Sean Payton counts Bill Parcells as a key mentor of his, and he worked under Bill Parcells with the Dallas Cowboys a couple of decades ago. Plus 74 point differential for those New York Giants of 1986, won a lot of close games, just like these Denver Broncos, and they went on to win Super Bowl 21. The second New England Patriots champion for Bill Belichick and Tom Brady back in 2003, they actually had the lowest point differential of any 11-2 team in the Super Bowl era. They were at plus 60 with their 11-2 start, and they went on to win the Super Bowl. And there's another Bill Parcells connection because, of course, Bill Belichick also worked under Bill Parcells. So there's something to the Parcells style in terms of being able to win in many manners, being resourceful, being able to eke out wins in close games. So in terms of the style of the Broncos, you have a couple of historic parallels right there. So that's a notch in the Broncos' favor that allows them to play above what their point differential says they should be. The Pythagorean win-loss, which if you're familiar with baseball, you're probably familiar with that, which basically takes your run differential, and in football would take your point differential and translate it to your record. So the Broncos' point differential says they should have 8.5 wins and 4.5 losses. So the Broncos are 2.5 wins above what their point differential says they should be. Now, of course, it's a little bit deceptive. You can look at the Raiders game on Sunday as a specific example of a deceptive result, but that's one game. That doesn't affect it all that much. That would add, say, 10 points of difference for the Broncos. It wouldn't really affect them all that much. You're talking not even a point per game in terms of difference in point differential. And I think most of the other games throughout the season that have been close for the Broncos are not necessarily closer than the score would indicate or not as close as the score would indicate. They've been pretty accurate in terms of what the scoreboard would indicate. The Raiders game is the exception. So the Broncos point differential, you could say, for the season, it's a fairly accurate reflection of the nature of games. The Raiders game would certainly be the outlier. So anyway, the point differential, I gave you a couple of examples there of teams that did win the Super Bowl that are similar to the Broncos. Now, those 03 Patriots and those 86 Giants, are they the norm or are they outliers? Well, that's where looking at the big picture comes into play. So I went through the 76 teams that have been 11-2 in the Super Bowl era and then took where all those teams were in point differential and looked at their outcomes at the end of the year. So you have the 76 teams, and those include the Broncos and the Patriots. So let's go through the previous 74 that have outcomes, right? So those previous 74. Of those 74 teams, you've got a healthy amount that have reached the Super Bowl. So you've got in total, you've got 30 of them that went on to the Super Bowl, and you have 49 of them that reached at least the conference championship game. Now, you can divide these into two clusters, and there was a very interesting dividing line in terms of success. And there was a dividing line at an average point differential point per game of 8 points per game. The Broncos' point differential per game is 5.6. If you had an average point differential of 8 points above 8 points per game, of 8 points per game or higher, I should say, 8 points per game or higher, if you were among those teams reached the Super Bowl with an 11-2 record and a point differential of 8.0 or higher per game. Those teams reached the Super Bowl 47% of the time. Those teams reached at least the conference championship game 71% of the time. Now, if you were below that threshold, if you were on the low end of it, and there were 15 teams like that before this year, the Broncos become the 16th team. A much lower percentage, because just 2 out of 15 of those teams reached the Super Bowl, and they both won it, those 86 Giants and those 03 Patriots, but the percentage dropped from 47% to just 13% in terms of making the Super Bowl. And the percentage of teams that made the conference championship game dropped from 71% to 47%. So you have the examples of teams that have made the Super Bowl and then won it. 2 teams with coaching styles and philosophies that are right in line with Sean Payton and the Broncos. But those are historically the outliers of teams that look like the Denver Broncos in getting to 11-2. So will the Broncos style come through again? Will Sean Payton and his coaching style out of the Bill Parcells tree, will that work again? Will the third time be a charm? Or will we not see another outlier result like those 86 Giants and like those 03 Broncos? That's what we'll find out over the next several weeks. So it's a little bit of a tug of war. I don't have a conclusion for you, except to say that if there is going to be an outlier result here for the Broncos with a relatively low point differential, despite an 11-2 record, coming out with the ultimate success, these Broncos, in terms of their coaching philosophy and how they're built, they are well positioned because of the man in charge. Cecil, back to you.
Look at that smile. Look at that smile. All right. That is Andrew Mason checking in from the road. We'll see him tomorrow out at Broncos Park, powered by Comet Spirit. What do y'all think about the Broncos in these last 4 games? What's the record going to be? What can they clinch? When can they clinch it? A win against Green Bay, and they are in the postseason. But clinching the AFC West, certainly couldn't have the Eagles help you out last night, taking out the Chargers. And then, of course, the number 1 seed. That's the thing. And because it's here within striking distance, I've always said, take that advantage, go get it. It's not a need per se, but it's something that the Broncos are now in position. Nate saying Rasta cease. Yeah, a little bit. So there you go. Let me know your predictions in the chat. We're here for a word from our sponsor, and I'll wrap up today's program with some final thoughts. But first, some thoughts from RamosLaw.com.
At Ramos Law, they believe in building long-term relationships with their clients. It's never just a transaction. Their motto says it best. Ramos Law, what makes us different makes us better. And it's so true. Ramos Law, uniquely built to fight for you.
Uniquely built to fight for you, to fight like the Denver Broncos are fighting over these last 4 games. The win streak will become a distraction to the media if the Broncos continue on said win streak. Just like the stupid questions about an J.K. Dobbins extension at the exact inappropriate time. He was hurt like the next week because reporters have to get ahead of like, should be time for an extension for J.K. Never. Let me get through a whole year healthy and then see. So just like that pissed me off and annoyed me. I do not want you're on a 17-game win streak. Brr, brr, brr. I don't want that to become the question, and it will be. Now, I'm not saying go out and lose. Nobody should be comfortable with a loss. And if you can win them all until the Super Bowl, then that's what you do. But history has shown the Denver Broncos in each one of their Super Bowl wins has had a loss. 2 games, by the way. 2. I'll get my fingers right. 2-game back-to-back losses in December for Super Bowl 32, Super Bowl 33, and Super Bowl 50. I'm not saying I want them to lose to the Packers and the Jaguars. By the way, the Eagles last year on a 10-game win streak, they lost in week 15. So again, I am not saying it's okay to lose. Do not at me, bro. That is not what I'm saying. I'm just saying the streak will be a distraction because the media will make it a story when this Broncos team is just set on winning the damn game in front of them. Not the streak, not even really the season as a whole. You don't want to count your chickens before they hatch. And you don't want to look at this Broncos team and say, well, look at everything that they've done. They haven't done anything. They haven't won it all. And that's their intent. Their intent is to win it all. I had them at 13 wins this year. They've got 11 of them. They haven't even got to 13 yet. And yeah, I'm getting greedy, but I want to remind the culture that Broncos country had for years and years and years. And the culture is merely this. You win in the Super Bowl, not that you're not satisfied or go Broncos or Broncos for life or whatever you want to say, but the culture of Broncos country was always like, yeah, win a Super Bowl. We used to make fun of AFC West hats. Look at this funny hat. Like, we used to make fun of that in Broncos country. I think some fans forgot. And that's why, like, you can definitely be happy and over the moon with everything that's taken place. But don't dare think that they are satisfied. Not at all. And you as a fan shouldn't be satisfied either, because you know this team can win the Super Bowl this year, not a year away, not the kick the can crowd. They're a year away. They're a year away. Tell Dan Marino in 1985 he was just a year away when he made the only Super Bowl of his career in his second season. So don't give me year away, year away, year away. The Chiefs could easily be back next year. Easily be back. The Ravens, with the health of Lamar Jackson, could easily be back next year. The Bills, if they ever fired Sean McDermott and figured out that he's an unfriendly version of John Fox, like, they could be actually what they're supposed to be instead of not as good as everyone says they are with Josh Allen. So, like, don't think about next year. Next year, there's always next year. Next year is everybody's year when you're a loser. This is your year now. You've got 11 wins. You're probably going to have 13 by the end of this year. Go get it. Go get that number 1 seed and go get that Super Bowl. As I say often, Super Bowl 60s is theirs until it's not. Well, last I checked, Super Bowl 60 is still theirs. So there you go. Take it now. William says, exactly, Cease. Take it now. My sister Carrie says, hi, Cecil. Hi, Carrie. Feeling a little bit better. So thanks for all your well wishes. You forgot a lot in 10 years. Yeah. And then David says, if the Broncos lose to a team that's not the AFC. This is the least impactful loss, if it is a loss, remaining on the schedule because it's an out-of-conference game. Again, don't want them to lose. And look at this game as a measuring stick for the NFC, but you want them to win as much as possible. Go get those 13, 14, 15 wins, whatever that number is, but make it happen. Make it happen. Pablo talking about the defense needing to step up. That'll be a conversation this week. Jordan Love will kill you if you blitz him. I've got some numbers. You do not blitz Jordan Love. He'll kill you. So I'm going to ask Vance Joseph about that on Thursday of like, hey, what are you thinking? What are you thinking about Jordan Love here? By the way, Paul saying Drew Brees won Super Bowl. Exactly. How many times was it? No, next year's the Saints' years. And they got to 1 and they won it. And they probably should have gotten to about 3. But then the stupid pass interference penalty, the Minnesota Miracle, right? The Saints were derailed in the postseason by the worst pass interference penalty of all time against the Rams. Like clear pass interference that wasn't called because the refs in the NFL suck. Or they're on the take because of Vegas. And then the Minnesota Miracle was silly Case Keenum. I don't want an email from corporate like, you can't say stupid Case Keenum. Case Keenum was not stupid. I just think that whole era of like, let's go get Case Keenum. Buy my book, Case Keesum. I thought the era of Case Keesum was stupid. How about that, corporate? Then it's not personal. But go get this thing. Get the Super Bowl. And take it now. Then go get another one. But right now, the Super Bowl is there for you if you're the Denver Broncos. Stay healthy and go get this thing. RJ Harvey do more. Marvin Mims will do more. Sean's talking about it. He talked about it Monday in the Zoom call, so it's probably going to happen. Anyway, super exciting for the Denver Broncos this season in Week 15. That is a wrap for today's edition. Again, Mace traveling. I'm here. We'll both be out at Broncos Park powered by Comet Spirit. So long as Sean Payton's on time and not early, I'll be able to make it from my show, Dover and Cecil. Make sure to stay tuned 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. every day. And then, of course, right here, Orange and Blue today at 5 p.m.-ish. Monday through Saturday. Well, Monday through Friday, and then Saturday we do a 9 a.m. game plan show. And then Sunday I do the Orange Blue Today post-game live. So we're here for you. We got it all. We appreciate you all very much. Appreciate my man Andrew Mason for sending all up in the videos. I am Cecil Lammey saying thanks very much, everyone, for watching. Stay tuned. Would you please also stay frosty?